Welcome to Saturday Morning Tutorials.
Feeling cute. Might delete later.
What do you think?
About what?
New jacket. I found it in the professor's stuff. Pretty good fit, right?
It's nice. You kind of look a little evil.
Like, is he bad? Is he good? Kind of like anti-hero evil, like Punisher style?
No, man, no. It's like a bad guy. Like someone who might raise prices.
Just like straight up evil.
Like someone who might steal someone's cool stuff.
All right, well,
Like someone who would try and take over a company.
Okay. It's not what I was going for, but
It's not a good look, really.
cool. I'll work with it.
You know what? There's something on your face, kind of. It's over, actually on the other side too. And kind of like everywhere. It seems like it's...
Man, am I good?
You know what? Yeah, I think you got it.
Is it getting hot in here? Feels kind of hot.
I think it might just be because you are wearing a jacket.
It's a good point. Leather jacket, not a good call. But I'm gonna wear this out, see how it goes.
Don't worry about a second opinion. Drive safe, avoid mirrors.
Okay, that was a weird thing to say, but see you later.
It actually gives me an idea. Feeling hot. So here we are in the beginning of the video. This is the part where we probably have different clips of Ghost Rider on the screen, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Nicolas Cage movies.
Yep.
Ordinarily, I would have some comments scrolling across the bottom that are like all the people over the years that have requested this effect,
Yeah, I'm looking for those. I don't see any.
They're not there, man. I searched every comment on every video we have ever uploaded.
No.
And not a single person has ever requested this effect. Not one.
Oh, that can't be right. Let me search. Oh my God, there's nothing.
So like, what is it? You guys didn't think we could handle it?
Is that what it is? They didn't think we were capable of doing this effect?
They didn't think that we could do the Ghost Rider effect?
That is ridiculous. I am fired up.
Whoa, you're what?
I'm getting heated.
Whoa. All right, I'm getting heated too. And to blow off some steam and also to get the effect started, the first thing I want to do is chop off Chris's head.
Yeah, wait.
Digitally.
Right, go for it.
It's pretty easy to do because we did shoot this on a tripod and we got a clean plate. So we're just gonna drop that clean plate in over the base footage and mask around your head, Chris. Now all I need to do is painstakingly rotoscope around the jacket. It's not that big a deal. I need to keep the detail around the collar, but the rest of it could be pretty loosey-goosey. It's fine.
To fill the inside of the collar, we have this clip of me just showing the inside of the jacket. We can grab a freeze frame of that and use the wonderful puppet pin tool to tweak the shape of it to make it fit snugly.
Before we get started with the skull part, the first thing everybody needs to realize is that at the time of recording this tutorial, it's almost 2019, man, there's still no good way to 3D track a face in After Effects. There just isn't. We faked it before with the 3D camera tracker, but that only works in very specific situations. You need to really get all up in your actor's grill and all that. It's just not gonna work for us.
But we can, however, track the face in 2D pretty well, so we'll just start there.
All right.
The only thing that's gonna be an issue though is when I cover up my face with these stupid hands. But you know what? We can work around that. Stupid hands. Get off of me. So clingy.
Let's move forward to the part of the footage where Chris's face is clear of his hands, and we're gonna grab the ellipse tool and draw an oval-shaped mask. Ah, dang it! That's a dang shape layer.
The dang shape layer.
I hate when I accidentally make these shape layers. Can you relate to that?
Yeah, everybody can.
Let's delete the shape layer. We're going to select the footage and now draw an oval mask around the talented actor's talented face. It does not need to be precise because the software can handle this pretty well. Let's hit M to reveal the mask properties. Right-click the name of the mask. Mask 1, good name. We'll select Track Mask.
In the tracking panel, select Face Tracking Detailed Features and Track Forwards. We can't go backwards because those dumb hands are gonna mess it all up.
Dude, you have such nice wrists and then they're ruined.
Absolutely
with those
ruined.
dumb hands.
I know. Somebody send me mittens for Christmas to cover up these hideous things.
When that tracking is done,
what's the point of all these fingers? trainers.
When that tracking's done, let's move our playhead backwards to the point where your dumb hands actually come in, and we're gonna track backwards from there. We don't need the mask anymore now that the tracking is done, so let's go ahead and set it to none to make it go away. It's still there, but we can't see it. It's not messing anything up anymore.
Yeah. Let's make a new null object and name it face track. Select the footage and hit U on the keyboard to reveal all of those keyframes. The face tracker tracks a lot of features on the face, so there's going to be a lot of keyframes. We want to pick a feature that is rigid. We don't want to use my mouth or my eyes or my eyebrows because all those points will slide along as my face changes with my stupid expressions.
No, your expressions are good.
Let's go with the point on the bridge of my nose, since most humans aren't capable of moving that.
So we'll go ahead and select the nose bridge, highlight all those keyframes, move our playhead to the first frame, and hit Control-C to copy those keyframes. On our face track null, we'll hit P to reveal the position property, highlight it, and then hit Control-V to paste. Now the null is tracked to the face, except for this part here that we were not able to track because of those dumb hands.
Dumb hands.
So for that part, we're just gonna go through and roughly move it into position. It doesn't really need to be perfect. We're gonna hit the 3D switch to make this into a 3D null, which is gonna make it more useful to us in the later steps. But as for now, it doesn't really change anything.
Wonder how many times we've said it doesn't need to be perfect.
Production crate, it doesn't need to be perfect.
We never wanted to actually track the face.
What are we doing here, man?
What we want to do, Adrian, is we want to make an object that sits at the center of my head, where my squishy, soft little brain lives. We also want that object oriented towards where I am facing. The way we're going to do that is using a spotlight. Spotlights have a point of interest property, which we can use to auto-orient them. We'll make our intensity 0 so it doesn't affect anything, and the rest of the settings don't actually matter, but if we bring the cone angle down to 40 or something, that's going to help us visualize our tracking. It doesn't actually change anything, it's just for our eyeballs.
Next, we need to figure out where in Z space the center of Chris's head actually is. If we already know, and we can all agree that the width and the depth of the human head are roughly equal, then we could figure this out by measuring.
Actually, I have a very cool technique for this, Adrian. Sit back and listen.
All right.
This is going to be rough, but let's add a new solid and make it 100 by 100 pixels.
Why?
The reason we do this is so when the scale of the solid is 100, it is also 100 pixels wide. The scale is equal to the actual size in pixels of the solid.
Oh, smart.
So when we move that over my face and stretch it out to cover up my face, we can see that this new scale of the solid is 344. So that means in this shot, my head is 344 pixels wide. So if we divide that by 2, which we can do right here in After Effects, we get 172. So that is where our light needs to be.
I'm impressed by your ingenuity. Let's change the Z position of the light to 172, and then we'll just move it into position with the X and the Y. All we need to do now is reveal the point of interest and pick whip it to link it up to the position of the null. Now we sort of have a 3D track. Of course, if you don't need your skull to follow your actor's face, you could just keyframe this and avoid this whole weird, complicated hassle of pseudo tracking.
Yep. Time for the actual skull.
Ooh, spooky.
Let's add a new solid and make it comp size, give it a name, and apply the element effect to that.
Click Scene Setup to open the element interface and import the skull model. Skull models can be found all over the internet, but if you want the specific one that we're using and you are a ProductionCrate Pro member, you can find it in the description.
Ah, there it is.
Great. Materials are already set up, so just make sure that this load material checkbox is checked, and those should come in perfectly. For the force alignment, make sure that it's set to from model. If we hit OK, you'll see that the reason for that is because we have the anchor point for the skull situated right here where the jaw hinges, and this will be useful later when we start trying to make the skull talk, but we're not doing that right now, so let's just go ahead and hit OK, and then I'll get us back into After Effects where we belong.
Ah, there's our skull, but it is not where we want it, so let's create a group null that we can use to move around. If you hit Shift and parent the null to the spotlight, it will inherit all the transform values. Now it is where we want it, but it is facing the wrong way around, so let's turn it on the Y orientation 180 degrees. Now let's move the null around to get the skull into the exact right position. It actually doesn't need to match the spotlight. The spotlight is just there to help the null, but now if we allow them to play through, you'll see we have an animated skull that roughly matches my performance.
And what a performance it was.
Well, thank you. Let's go ahead and try to make that skull we'll do some talking.
All right, because of the way that we shot the footage, we have a separate WAV file with the audio on it. If we play that, you'll hear Chris's voice.
Is it me? Am I good? Is it me? Am I good?
You might have this also, or you might just have your audio baked into your footage. It doesn't matter, just select whichever file it is that has your audio, come up to Animation, Keyframe Assistant, Convert Audio to Keyframes. That'll give us a new null object that just has some keyframes with numbers that go up and down depending on how loud our audio is. Our audio is mono, so we don't actually need these left and right channels, so let's just get rid of them.
See ya.
Bye!
Let us go back into the element interface and we shall duplicate the group folder that has the skull in it. We'll move it to group 2 and turn off the skull, leaving only the jaw, and on the other one we'll turn off the jaw, leaving only the skull, and now we have separated those elements.
Makes sense to me. Now our jaw is separate, but it's way over here, so let's make a group null for it and shift parent it to the null 1 to bring it back into position. It looks just like it did before, but the difference is now we're able to control the rotation of it independently of the rest of the skull. To make it speak, we mostly want to animate the X rotation. Put an expression on the X rotation and pick whip the slider to the audio keyframes. This is the simplest version of this expression. Let's see what it looks like.
Is it me? Am I good? Is it me? Am I good? Is it me? Am I good? All right, it's already kind of good. You could just leave it here, but we want to emphasize the motion a little bit more than that. So at the end of the expression, we can type an asterisk and the number 2, and that's going to double how much the mouth actually opens. Is it me? Am I good? Is it me? Am I good? Is it me? Am I good?
So now the skull looks more like it's talking. You can push this as far as you want. If we multiply it by 10, we can really get this mouth opening and give us a more over-the-top sort of cartoony look.
Is it me? Am I good? Is it me? Am I good? That might be a little too much, but just to really push it, let's multiply it by 100 and see what it does. Is it me? Am I good? Is it me? Am I good?
That is clearly not good.
Keep your opinion to yourself, Adrian.
No, I really don't recommend that. We're just gonna leave it at 2, okay?
Boring.
And if
predictable.
But if you do want to add some more motion to the jaw, we can alt-click the stopwatch on the orientation and add a wiggle expression. We'll start by typing wiggle, open parentheses, 10, and this 10 is just kind of an arbitrary number. It doesn't really matter that much in this case, comma, and then for the second number, we're just gonna use our pick whip to select the audio keyframes again, and then close the parentheses. If we play that through, you'll see that our jaw has a bit more of a random movement.
Is it me? Am I good? Is it me? Am I good? And just like before, we can push that a bit further. Let's put this pick whipped part of the expression into some brackets, so now we can multiply it by 3 and see how it looks. Is it me? Am I good? Is it me? Am I good? Is it me? Am I good?
That added a lot more movement. In our case, it's actually too much. It looks like the skull is chewing, which makes no sense because Chris is way too polite to talk with his mouth full. Your mama raised you better than that, so let's just get rid of that. If you like,
depends what I'm eating.
When you finally do decide that you like the amount that your jaw is moving, but you do want to try a slightly different look, you can just highlight the part where we type 10 and replace that with a different number, like 5.
Or square.
No, no offense, but that's a shape.
All right. One thing to note though is that the wiggle expression takes the index of the layer into account, so if we start adding other layers to this comp, the position of the jaw is going to change. As you can see, with each new layer, it changes. Sometimes this doesn't matter, but in our case, it's going to cause problems later when we want to add fire. So the way to get around that is to just add a keyframe, right click on it, go to Keyframe Assistant and select Convert Expressions to Keyframes. Now the expression's baked in and we are not going to have any problems.
Sweet, let's go ahead and add some lighting. Fire is shiny, so that makes sense. You think that makes sense? Some lighting? Some fiery lighting?
Let me think about this. Yeah, okay, checks out.
All right, so I think the best way to start doing this is with a new spotlight, and let's go ahead and make the color of it kind of a deep red orange. Of course, fire is actually more yellow. I'm not dumb, I know that, but we are gonna have multiple copies of this light, which are all gonna kind of add together and get more and more yellow as they do. So if we start with too much yellow, we're just gonna end up with some ugly colors. So, okay? So make the light a bit more red than you'd actually think, but not totally red though, because that'll just give us the opposite problem. It'll just just make it totally red. Let's make it red-orange. We will make the intensity 100, and we're gonna bring up the clone angle a bit, all right?
Yeah.
All right.
First thing we want to do with this is go up to Layer, Transform, Auto Orient, and turn it off. This is gonna get rid of the point of interest, so we can now control this light using traditional layer controls. Earlier, the point of interest was useful to us, but now it's not. You know, things change.
People
Move
change, get on with your life.
Yeah.
We want to move this light kind of below the face, like when you're at a campfire and you're telling scary stories. We can use the different orthographic views here in After Effects to get it positioned how we want it.
I've never camped before.
You literally have.
We're gonna add wiggle expressions to almost everything on this light. We're gonna add to the intensity, the orientation, and especially the position. Now the light jumps around and flickers. Remember before how we told you that the wiggle expression will change depending on where the layer is in the layer stack?
I remember.
We're gonna use that to our advantage.
Ooh.
Duplicate the light a few times, and now you'll have several lights that are all doing different things, which mimics the erratic nature of fire. The lights are also now adding their color together and turning this into a really nice fiery orange, just like we promised they would, everybody.
Pinky promise, as a matter of fact.
No weird yellow splotches.
To push this a little bit more, we can open up the render settings in Element and twirl down the shadow section and enable those shadows. We don't need the ray trace ones. The shadow mapping is faster and it looks fine. We're also going to turn on the ambient occlusion and we're going to crank it up. This is a skull, and skulls traditionally will have very dark eyes and cavities, so we're going to crank this up more than we normally would in other situations.
Yeah, skulls are cool.
Yeah, skulls are cool.
This looks pretty good, but if you're still not happy with the amount of glow on this thing, we can add some more. Let's open up the element interface, and we're gonna alter the material of the skull a little bit. Come down to the illumination section, turn it up, color it a fiery orange, and turn up the Fresnel. And that's gonna give us some additional glow on the edges. Now our skull is looking super duper dope.
Dope on a rope. Time to call the dope pope.
Guy never picks up.
Never picks up. Too dope. Let's head over to ProductionCrate.com and do a search for fire. We will be greeted with this fiery page, and there's going to be some fiery videos on here to teach you how to use these fiery fire clips.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it really is. There's also some thumbnails of the different fiery categories, but we're going to skip those and head straight for the Browse More Fire and Spark VFX link. And here we go. Tons of fiery fire clips.
Before we actually start putting in fire, we want to decide on a
Or should I say warm?
I don't get it.
Okay.
So before we actually start putting in the fire, we want to decide on a look for the fire because we have a few different types that don't necessarily match each other. We have these cool CGI fires, but for this project, we think we might want to go in a more realistic direction. We're gonna go with these fireballs here. We're gonna use Trapcode Particular for our fire animations. We've done a video in the past that goes into more detail on this specific technique. If you wanna see that, click on the eye in the top right-hand corner of this video. That stands for it's good.
If you don't have Particular, another option is to use the MotionCrate script to get some more movement out of your fire. And that's gonna be linked in the cards and the description as well. Click,
yeah, it's really cool.
eye.
Let's grab 3 of these fireball clips. We're gonna take fireball number 4, fireball number 3, and fireball number 5.
Nice choices.
The more clips you use, the more variety you'll have. Let's bring all 3 of those fireballs into our project and use those to make a new composition. Let's trim all of those to make them the same length, and we'll move them in the comp so they match up with the center a bit better. This is to make them more particular friendly.
Open up the comp settings and just make it a bit longer so we have some more room to work with. Highlight all 3 layers, right click on them, and come up to Keyframe Assistant, Sequence Layers. And then we're gonna trim our comp to end where the last layer ends. And since we made these all the same length, now they each take up exactly 1/3 of this timeline.
Just to keep things clean, we're gonna put our fire effects in their own composition. So let's duplicate the main comp and change the name to Fire Comp. Better. Open it up and delete the spotlights. We don't need them here. Let's bring the particle comp into this comp and put it below all the other layers. Poke its darn eye up because we don't want to see it and we don't want it to see us.
We'll make a new solid, make it comp size, and this will be our particular solid. Add Trapcode Particular to it. We want the emitter to be in the middle of Chris's head, so the head can be engulfed in flames. We'll make a new light to serve as the emitter, and we'll make it a point light, and we're gonna call it the middle of the head light. Keep the intensity at 100, because with light emitters, the intensity actually will affect the emission of your particles, and keeping it at 100 will just help keep it clean and not confusing. If we shift parent this light to the group 1 null, it will now be in the center of the skull, where Chris's brain would be if it wasn't instead a light emitter.
In particular, we will change the emitter type to a light, and we're gonna get yelled at here because our light has the wrong name. We already knew that. It's fine. Click the change names button and type the name of your light using the exact spelling and capitalization and all that stuff, and now the particles are coming from the light.
Jeez, why is this plugin so particular about these things? A rare win for Adrian. Open the particle settings and change the particle type to a sprite and change the texture to our particle comp. It's gonna yell at us again and it's gonna say something like, "Hey dummy, your particle texture is way too big." And that's honestly a fair criticism. Normally particles are small and there's a lot of them, so you would use a low res texture. But in our case, we're not gonna have that many particles and they're gonna be big, so we made the decision to keep it HD. We know what we're doing.
Got a problem with that trap code? Yeah, you do. You're a so under the time sampling, we need to change it to split clip play once and set the number of clips to 3 since we have 3 different fireballs in our particle comp.
So now we've got all these teeny tiny little orange dots.
Like fireflies.
Like fireflies. So we're gonna start increasing the size of those, and now we have a big messy orange blob, much better. Let's change the blend mode of the particles to lighten. This will make it so the particles are bright and they can make each other lighter but not darker, but they're not gonna add their brightness together like it would if we pick screen or add, which would just be way too bright. We'll also turn down the particles per second, and turning down the emitter size and the velocity will help keep this under control as well.
To make it look like the skull is engulfed in these flames instead of just behind them, we're gonna duplicate the element layer and bring it up to be right above the particle layer. Go ahead and twirl down the output settings and change it to be a world position output. To get better control over this, we're going to create a world position null that we can use to move the feathering of the mat around. Now we can use the world position pass solid as a luma mat for our particular solid. Look at that.
That looks great. It looks more like it's inside the fire now. We can move the null around to show a bit more or less of the skull. Just as an example, look at how this cheekbone covers up the fire, but then the part where the bone connects to the rest of the skull kind of recedes into the fire. These are the kind of cool looking details that we want to preserve.
We repeated this whole process again to get a second layer of fire, but more towards the front of the skull. Now it is looking pretty cool, but one issue we have with it is that there's this one very smooth feathered line where the fire transitions into the forehead of the skull. There's actually another one with the other layer, but it's covered with the flames of this layer, so it is not an issue that I care about.
Solo the element layer and open up the utilities section, and we're going to use this generate 3D position tool. Put the marker on the skull's forehead and hit generate. Now we have a 3D null that is sitting right on the skull's forehead. Parent that to the group 1 null, and that'll make it so it moves around with the skull.
Neato.
Neato.
On FootageCrate.com, great website, there are a few of these small loopable fire clips. Let's download one and bring it into the comp. We'll go ahead and mask off this bottom reflection part here. Make it 3D. It's turned black now, and that's because there's lights in this comp. So all we need to do is turn off accept lights in the materials option. Shift parent it to the element position null and tweak the position from there. Now we've covered up that smooth transition and made it more fiery. Hey, by the way, if you want to use a fire that is not loopable, Adrian made this super useful tutorial. Go ahead and click the It's Good icon at the top right.
You really like it?
I watched it.
One final issue I have with the fire is that when it starts to fade out, especially in these bright points, like this white hot spot here, it just kind of turns gray. But it shouldn't be turning gray. It should go from white to yellow to orange instead of just fading to gray. Have you ever seen gray fire before?
Yes, and it is a bad omen. If you ever see it, you run. You hear me? You run, Adrian. Get out. Never look back. Or you can fix that.
Oh.
By adding a new adjustment layer. Since there's still some transparency here, let's add a solid composite effect. It's always better to have a solid background when color correcting stuff. On top of that, let's add a CC toner. Poke out the eye of the adjustment layer for now so we can see the original colors, and set the number of tones to pin tone to give us 5 colors to work with. And now we'll just steal some colors from the actual fire in this shot. Leave the highlights and the shadows as white and black. If we turn the adjustment layer back on, our color nitpick is now fixed.
Now we can just drop this comp in over our other comp and give it a screen or an add transfer mode, and boom!
Ghost Rider!
Ghost.
That's his theme song?
Does he have a theme song?
Ghost Rider!
There it is.
The way we transitioned from the face to the skull was using a fractal noise layer and an animated threshold effect. effect. We did the same thing with the low-key transformation effect and the Infinity War disintegration effect. This is the only effect we ever do.
Sing another song, Production Crate.
It's actually the only effect we know, so go ahead and unsubscribe right there by clicking that thumbs up button.
If you did make it all the way to the end of this video, you the real MVP, because this was a big one. We know you guys were a bit shy about suggesting this effect because you didn't think we could handle it. We forgive you. Chris is a bit bitter. You know, it'll make him feel better. All of our friends here at the end of the video, you should leave us a comment with as many tutorial ideas as you can possibly think of. All of them in one comment, and we're gonna pin the comment with the most suggestions.
Yeah, unleash your creativity here. Adrian and I, we just want to keep building cool VFX and making cool tutorials. We can't use our brain power on thinking of cool ideas. We're all out of brain power.
Chris's brain is on fire.
Yeah.
First of all.
Yeah, so I have a pretty good excuse. Adrian had very little to work with in the first place. So we're really depending on you guys. So help us out. Leave a comment with a ton of ideas below. And remember to make it awesome.
Later, Crate.
Hey guys, Chris Kelly here with ProductionCrate.com. And yeah, it's really hot. Make sure to watch these two videos if you have not seen them. They're both fantastic. Also, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. There's also the notification bell. Need some water. Oh God. Oh, it's so hot.